Hello, and welcome to Denton's Tales of the Viking Age. Did a goddess walk amongst us? I recently made a video about the usually underrated goddess Hel, the ruler of the realm of the dead in Norse religion, in which I looked at the considerable number of misrepresentations of her in art and in the media in general, and the misunderstanding of her that has become a part of popular imagination. However, there is a story that I did not refer to in that video. I thought I would do it as a standalone short video. A story that is, well, it's quite frankly amazing, though one that will be believed by some and completely ridiculed by others. Now, this is not Old Norse belief or mythology or anything to do with it. No, this is a story of our own times. Not all that many years ago, but directly linked to the gods of Asgard. I can't say categorically that it's true, nor can I say with any certainty that it isn't. There is only one person who actually knows the truth of it, and that is he who related it to me. Well, I suppose there would be two who know the truth or otherwise of the story. He who told it to me and Hel herself. Now, this man shall be nameless. Not that he fears the inevitable accusations of either, well, shall we say, telling porky pies, or having been under the influence of some hallucinogenic substance, or indeed simply being a raving idiot. No, the fact is that he didn't want the story to be seen as publicity, as something to gain him, if not belief by some people, certainly notoriety, something to bring him to the attention of the public and bring him rewards from those who did believe. As Oscar Wilde said, the only bad publicity is no publicity. He is now a shaman, practicing the ancient arts of the Old Norse and other shamanic cultures, and he never published this particular story for fear he would be seen as a liar. The story no more than a gimmick worthy of P.T. Barnum, an invention simply designed to bring him followers. That is, to my mind, it's the thing that actually gives the story credibility. It isn't something he made up. It is something that actually happened, or at least he genuinely believes that it happened, giving it a truthfulness that making it something he could use to advertise himself and profit from would completely destroy. Had he used it for publicity, well, its value as an anecdote would be questionable, to say the least. In fact, it really would be non-existent. It would be seen as a publicity ploy. So, here is the story as he told it to me. He was bleeding internally, very, very severely. It was a severe hemorrhage. His life was in considerable danger, so he was rushed into the operating theatre for emergency surgery. Now, as he waited for them to get him prepped for surgery, a woman suddenly appeared beside him. She just came from nowhere. There she was, where she hadn't been a moment before. A woman who it seemed was both alive and dead, clearly the colour of a corpse and a bit mouldy as well. Dressed in an archaic manner, obviously hardly a member of the hospital theatre staff. But this man is of Norse descent. He was familiar with the old stories retold by Snorri, and he recognized her instantly. She was Hel, ruler of the realm of the dead. Indeed, who could a half-dead, slightly rotted woman be? And she smiled, and she spoke to him. She told him not to worry, that he would live, and that she was going to do a very special thing just for him. With that, she thrust her hand into his chest, grasping his heart, seeming to lift it out and doing something or other with it. When she'd finished, she smiled pleasantly, put it back, and told him that she had given him a gift like no other, that his life would be very different from then on, nothing like he had ever known before. And with that, she was gone. Now, shortly after, he was taken in and the surgery commenced. It was a success. The bleeding was stopped, and he subsequently woke up in the recovery room. Now, his first thought was of his dream, which he naturally thought it had been. Well, no, I suppose that's not really correct. I'm sure his first thought was, "I'm alive!" But his second thought, shall we say, was of his dream. Of course, he laughed to himself. I mean, why would the goddess of the dead, even if she actually existed, come to him and give him some gift, whatever it was? It was absolutely ridiculous. But now, here's where it gets really interesting. He suddenly noticed something that was different about him. Oh, very different indeed. And in a very surprising and rather frightening way at first. He noticed people there with him, which in itself might not seem anything very unusual. There are other people in hospitals, except that those other people happened to be dead. Yes, dead. And more than that, not only could he see them, but he could talk to them as well. Now, that wasn't something he'd ever been able to do previously. He wasn't psychic. He'd never had any abilities in that line. He didn't have visions. He'd never practiced any form of shamanic rituals. And he certainly hadn't invoked any Norse deities before his surgery, or even thought of them, since he wasn't actually practicing that faith. Yet, he was visited by the goddess of the dead. And now, he was chatting with dead people. You know, that is how he became a shaman. He began to study it, and eventually he became a very prominent shamanic scholar and began lecturing and touring and teaching, and using his abilities to help people, though never mentioning how he came to be that person, his encounter with Hel being kept secret. Now, you know, personally, if I were at death's door waiting for life-saving emergency surgery and Hel suddenly appeared at my side, I think I'd probably have a heart attack before she had a chance to say anything at all. And she'd have to tell me whatever it was she wanted to say to me at her place down in Niflheim. But let's look at this. We must ask, why would Hel come to this man? No, not a man of any importance, not even actually practicing the Old Norse faith, though he knew about it. And why would she give him any gift at all? Giving gifts to the living was not her responsibility. And while she was goddess of the dead, that didn't mean she would hand out the ability to see and talk to them to someone else. He wasn't even a shaman, so why would she do that? But since he had never shown any psychic abilities up to then, we must assume that she did. Otherwise, why would he suddenly gain that ability after she appeared? Assuming, of course, that you believe his story, though, as I mentioned, his reluctance to ever speak about it does indicate his truthfulness. He believed it happened. Whether or not it did, he believed it. He was not lying. But if it wasn't Hel, or something taking her form at least, then who or what was it? He gained abilities he didn't have prior to that, and he could hardly have thought them into existence himself. But why would he even think of that? And even if he did, how could that in itself give him some supernatural abilities? Something happened. Now that seems without doubt. What that something actually was, well, that may be questioned, but something did happen. Also, and this is a very interesting part, he recognized Hel by her appearance, a half-dead, partially rotting woman. But that is not how she would actually look. No, she wouldn't look like that in her true form, and we must suppose that she had adopted that image, as it would be instantly recognizable to anyone with even a slight knowledge of Old Norse stories as recounted by Snorri. Hel was not dead. She simply ruled over the realm of the dead. You know, she would look perfectly normal. Her corpse-like, half-dead image was an invention of Christian retelling of the old stories. Yet she comes to this man in that very form, looking as someone would expect her to look, not as she actually was. Now, you know, that is understandable. You know, if you look at people who claim to have had visions, they invariably see a divine being in the form they expect to see them, not always as they would actually be. You know, the Virgin Mary, or Miriam as we should really call her, she is always seen as fair-complexioned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, a woman of obviously European appearance, very, very Nordic appearance. Yet in actual fact, she would have been quite dark. Her hair would have been dark brown or black, her eyes brown. She was a Jewess of the 1st century. She would more have resembled a modern-day Egyptian. So those who have visions of her are seeing her as they expect to see her, looking like the woefully wrong statues and icons of her and Jesus that you'll find in Catholic churches, which are completely ridiculous. Perhaps an Indian would see her as blue, or an African would see her as black, without the church images affecting them, of course. And it could be said that a divine being would appear to someone in a form they would recognize, and thus be more inclined to accept. So, would hell appear to someone as a normal-looking woman? Say, oh, I know I don't look dead and there's no maggots in me, but I'm hell, okay? No, probably not. Not if she wanted them to believe her, just as the Virgin Mary, appearing to a devout Catholic in a grotto in France, looking like she actually did, would get the response, who are you supposed to be? That still leaves the question of why. Why would hell give such a gift, which was not part of her duties, to someone who wasn't even a devoted follower, a man who hadn't even thought of her? That she, or something taking her accepted form, did, seems proven by the fact she can see dead people now, and he couldn't previously. Why? Well, only hell herself could answer that question, and I'm afraid she doesn't do interviews. She hasn't responded to any of my calls anyway. But as and when you traverse the Hellwege, the road to hell, I suppose, well, you can always ask her yourself. And with that, my friends, I shall say farewell and goodbye until the next time. Goodbye for now.